Hey guys, Buildzoid here, and this is going to be an extra low effort video because, yeah, I've made 2 videos that are like entirely too many views and terrible in my opinion. So now we're gonna do some good old fashioned AHOC content that's like an hour long, difficult to get the useful information out of. Um, and yeah, it's brought to you by this tweet over here, which was tweeted at me. Because apparently I haven't made a like RAM shopping video in ages, so we're going RAM shopping. We're gonna be looking at DDR4 and DDR5. We're gonna be looking at 2x8, 2x16, 2x32. I will point out that like you're not supposed to mix memory kits, because while a lot of the time it works out, a lot of the time it can cause massive issues if you get, say, like there are certain memory chips on each generation of DRAM which just do not work together. So that's the main reason that like 4x8 and 4x16 memory kits exist, is that those memory kits are validated that all of them like that, well, they're not even validated. It's like you get it, actually no, they are validated to actually work together because there are certain memory, like I think Samsung C-Die actually is incompatible with itself to some extent, as in it's so incredibly bad that if you put enough Samsung C-Die onto a single memory channel, it stops working. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the main reason why you don't want to buy like a cheap 2x8 kit and then another cheap 2x8 kit and then find out you got 2 sets of Samsung C-Die and suddenly the XMP doesn't work because C-Die is just that bad. But um, anyway, yeah, we're gonna do 2x8, 2x16, 2x32. And we're gonna throw in some DDR5 because while most proper YouTubers would divide this up into multiple episodes for maximum, viewership, I don't care. I don't like. Yeah, we're making like an hour long going shopping for RAMs. So, um, I guess we're gonna start with 2x8 DDR4, and we're just gonna go for the cheapest option there initially, right? And yeah, no, I'm not really a fan of that. This is so this right here from Team Group, the 3200 CL22. So this is JDEC. This is more or less guaranteed to work. This is like an official spec for DDR4. This is supposed to always work. This should never have any compatibility issues, assuming that you use a platform that supports 3200 megabits per second memory. Um, yeah, this is like, you know, like if you just want like max compatibility, this is an option. Um, and like it'll be overclockable. Like, like the 3200 CL16 kits aren't very special. Like I would be very surprised if you found if you bought like a couple of these and some of them didn't do 3200 CL16. I'd find that very surprising because even like garbage tier memory chips these days will do 3200 CL16, which is the main reason I don't see a point in like paying extra for 3200 CL16, but these days 3200 CL16 doesn't cost any extra, so that's not really a concern, right? Like this is 46, like this is $47, this is $47. So honestly, in this case, I would probably just get the silicon power kit. Um, and yeah, so like the main issue with the cheap 3200 CL16 kits is that the memory chips you get are just completely random. You can get Hynix, like 1JR, CJR, DJR, literally anything that showed up on the factory floor that day. You can get C die, D die, occasionally B die. My experience with 3200 CL16 rated B die kits is that they generally kind of suck. Like it's still B die. It still does the B die subtimings, but the primaries are painful. The voltage tolerance is miserable, and they also tend to be way more temperature sensitive than like good B die kits. But um, yeah, so 3200 CL16 is kind of like the main issue with it is it's a lottery bin, so you don't really want to put 2 of them together because you don't know that it's going to be the same thing twice. But if you're just buying one of them as like a budget build, then yeah, like 3200 CL16 for less than $50. Actually, wait a minute, there's 3618, and that's not even like terrible. Um, I'm guessing Newegg has it on sale or something because like Amazon has it at 60. Yeah, it's on sale right now. So this is actually like this is a good deal. Though a word of warning, this probably won't run if you have a non-K C. Like this will potentially cause issues with a non-K CPU because like non-K 12th gen Intel CPUs, because Intel locked the VCCSA voltage on non-K CPUs. So the highest like memory controller clock that those CPUs can support is like, if you're lucky, they'll do 1800 megahertz, but a lot of them won't. So you'll basically, like, if you buy a kit like this, you'll probably have to drop it down to 3466, which, I mean, that'll probably still outperform a 3200 CL16 kit. It will on Ryzen because your Infinity Fabric will be clocked higher, but on Ryzen it'll just run at 3618, so it's not really a concern there. On Intel, I'm not sure. So for Ryzen, this is great. Or 11th gen Intel, this is fine. It's literally just 12th gen non-K CPUs where a memory kit like this can actually cause issues just because Intel locked the system agent voltage. Why Intel did that, well, I think we all know why Intel did that. They want more money. It's like, oh, you didn't pay for the K at the end of the CPU's name? Well, no VCCSA voltage for you. Have fun with your memory overclocking when you can't clock the memory controller very high. Anyway, also, by the way, you can't adjust the memory controller clock on 12th gen independently. Well, the memory controller runs either at the same speed as the memory, or no, it runs at the same clock as the memory, or it runs at half the clock of the memory. You do not want to run it at half the clock of the memory because that is terrible for performance. Unless you're on DDR5, because DDR5 is obviously clocked insanely high, so it becomes less of an issue. But yeah, for DDR4, you really do want to be in 1-to-1 mode on 12th gen Intel, and in that scenario, 3600 may or may not work. So that's kind of a thing to watch out for if you have like a 12400F or a 12100F, or a 12700. Like literally, it doesn't matter how much you paid for the CPU. The main thing is like if it doesn't have a K somewhere in the name, you don't get VCCSA voltage control, and you might not be able to run 3600 megabits per second memory speeds. So for that, so basically for Intel, you want like 3200 CL16 if you want like maximum compatibility, or like least potential of having problems. On Ryzen, 3600 CL18 is easy. Like any Ryzen CPU will do 3600 CL18. That really isn't an issue. And even basically any motherboard will do 3600 CL18 as long as you're only doing it with 2 memory sticks. If you have 4 memory sticks, things start getting kind of interesting, especially on the really cheap boards. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, so the boring end of DDR5, like, so DDR4, on the low end is just kind of like buy 3200 CL16. If you're on Intel, if you're on Ryzen, you want to get like a 3600 CL18 kit. Now, if you care about overclocking, which I hope you do if you're on my channel, we need to find something where it's like you actually know what memory chips you're gonna get, because it's not very fun buying a memory kit and then finding out that you have, say, Samsung C-Die. Not that Samsung C-Die is the absolute worst in terms of performance, it's just a massive pain to work with. It's also pretty bad in terms of performance, but like it actually does halfway decent TRFC. So on Ryzen, it's actually not completely terrible. It does, like, your TRDs are fine. Like, all of your subtimings are fine. It's just cast latency is completely trash on that. Which really doesn't hurt that much. But then there's also the weird, like, C-Die. Like, C-Die exists. It's not exactly something I would be particularly thrilled about having. Anyway, so I'm trying to look for... Actually, you know what? Let's do this the easy way. I'm just going to check off Crucial, and there. This is how you avoid Samsung C-Die. You buy Crucial memory, because Crucial's owned by Micron, so all of the Crucial memory kits come with Micron memory chips. However, they do also cost extra. They cost, $80, which... honestly, if you're manually overclocking, I would dare say that I'd be willing to take the risk of like a $50 3200 CL16 kit and just like hoping that it's not C-Die and then manually overclocking it. Even if it is C-Die, it's probably not, like, it's not going to be that much worse. It's just going to be a pain to set up. The actual performance isn't going to be a complete disaster. It's just, yeah, the setup's going to be more difficult. Um, yeah, but if you want guaranteed Micron, I'm not sure. I think they've rolled out a new memory chip. I think there's a Micron D die at this point. Um, so you could A, B, C, D. No, A, B, C, D, E, F. There might be an F die. I've not checked. And that might show up in like the 3200 CL16 bins, but yeah. So actually, what I would recommend is like a non-B die overclocking option. Also, $80. That's really not that far off a cheap B die kit. Like you can get B die for like $100 still, because yeah, it's still in production. But alternatively, what you'd want to look for is like Hynix CJR, which is just all. I really like Hynix CJR. I actually straight up prefer it to Micron. Um, it does slightly better TRFC, it does similar primary timings, and the easiest way to find CJR is basically 16, 19, 1939 timings. That's like typical CJR things right there, at 3600. You can also find it in 1618 on 3466 kits, but I can't remember what the TRAS is supposed to be for that, so we're just going to check off the appropriate speeds. And because the thing is, like, well, you might still get Micron chips, but like Micron and CJR are relatively equivalent. You could also get DJR in CJR bins. Where's the speed? Am I blind? Oh, there's the speed. So yeah, we want like 3666 or higher. Because like, yeah, 3666 CL16 is like is a CJR bin, though I don't think they, yeah, it doesn't seem like that's much of a thing anymore. And actually, it looks like, yeah. So this right here is actually what I'd go for instead of those Crucial kits, because this is 3600 CL16. Again, the XMP might not work on non-K12th gen CPUs, but on Ryzen, this will be great. I think G.Skill does occasionally use Micron, but it's pretty rare. So this is basically guaranteed to be... Okay, I'm not going to say guaranteed. I don't know statistics from G.Skill for how much Micron do they use, how much Hynix they use, but as far as I know, G.Skill generally prefers using Hynix and Samsung rather than Micron memory chips for their like higher speed kits. So I would assume this is pretty much guaranteed to be some kind of Hynix. You could get JJR, 1JR, CJR, DJR. DJR is like the really good option, and then all the other options are kind of the same thing. DJR clocks insanely high. Not that that's particularly useful, because the primary timing, like CJR's biggest weakness, I mean, basically everything that isn't Micron Rev B has one massive weakness, which is the TRCD timing, which actually has a pretty significant impact on performance. And so, like, you can run crazy speeds on DJR and still just get dunked on by a B die kit running like a gigabit per second slower, and yeah, just that kind of thing. But as a budget option, this is really cool. So yeah, this is right now. I think I'd basically be grabbing this for a 3600 CL16 option. The XMP on this is going to be strong as well, just because it's 16, 19, 19. And G.Skill generally doesn't screw up their XMP subtimings in my experience. Like, I've not had a G.Skill kit come in with, I turn on the XMP and, oh, what happened? Like, the activate timings are screwed up or something. Like, I've seen that with other manufacturers, not G.Skill. So, yeah, unfortunately, it looks like all of the convenient CJR bins are not actually very cheap right now. Which is annoying. Did I not tick off all of the necessary timings? Because it used to be that there was like a ton of 16, 19, 19 at like under $100, and now it's like not a thing apparently, which is really dumb. Yeah, like that really, really sucks. Like, please, actually, that's gonna be B die. Yeah, no, that's B die. At 16, 19, that's B die. Yeah, so this actually, yeah, but it's also like twice the price. So. Whereas, what's this? Oh, that's still B-die. Yeah, so this is actually an interesting option if you're in, like, if you want a B-die kit, though you can get cheaper B-die kits than this. So that kind of covers, I think. Oh wait, I didn't tick off 161936. Oh yeah, that helps. We have a Corsair 1619. Now Corsair uses a lot of Micron. They also use Nanya, which is actually pretty good. Um, at least the stuff that ends up in 3600 CL16 should be pretty good. So yeah, that right there is a solid option. This right here, I mean, it's $95, which is like you can get a B-die kit at that point. So not a fan. Like, yeah, I'm just straight up not impressed by that. That's way too damn expensive. I guess it's because it's RGB and these two aren't, but like RGB does not make your games go faster. Properly set up B-die does very slightly, very very slightly, but it like unlike RGB that actually does make a difference. If you set it up manually on auto timings, it performs the same, or pretty much the same. Anyway, so that's what kind of, yeah, so basically this 3600, well, not this, but these two from like as like a sub $100 option, these are sort of, yeah, these are interesting because this will probably be Hynix CJR, so if you want to manually overclock it, you'll have a lot of room for like tightening up the sub timings. And all around, like, yeah, I would consider these a solid option, considering the price. And these will work great on Ryzen and on non-K Intel CPUs. You'll have to underclock them a bit. But if you drop these to 3466, it'll actually still outperform a 3200 CL16 kit. So, and 3466 should work on every 12th gen Intel CPU. Like, that should not be a problem whatsoever. It's 3600 where it's like sometimes it doesn't work. Anyway, so it's that. I'm gonna now have to like reset my criteria. So DDR4 and 2x8, and now let's go for B-die kits because I feel like we've addressed the super cheap option at like the sub $50 3200 CL16 kits. We've addressed sort of the I want Hynix CJR because like or Microns, but I would probably go for CJR. Yeah, personally, I would go for CJR before I went for Micron, just because it does do slightly lower TRFC, which doesn't make a huge difference. But the prices, like the Crucial kits, are like what, $80. These are actually slightly cheaper or roughly the same price. So it's just kind of like, yeah, like that's kind of like they're interchangeable in my opinion at this point. So anyway, let's go for B-die. So we're going to go from most expensive to least expensive. And actually, while we're at the insanity end of 2x8 memory kits, let's talk about these. So this right here, this is really fun. Like, this is a really fun kit if you're way too into memory overclocking and utterly useless for 24/7 operation. Like, I have one of these kits. It was sent to me by Crucial. It's really fun. I've taken it on liquid nitrogen. It clocks like mad. I would never put it into a daily system. The compatibility of a memory kit like this with motherboards is just an absolute, well, actually these days it's not that bad, but yeah, like this is really hard on the memory controller and your motherboard, and just like also like you can get better performance for like an eighth. Yeah, you can literally get better performance for 1/8 of the price. So yeah, very cool kit. In the sense, like, it's like a top speed car. It doesn't corner. It doesn't even accelerate that fast. Like, it doesn't even go that fast in a, short amount of distance. But if you have a long enough stretch of road, it can get very, very fast. So that's kind of the situation with that kit right there. This is just dumb. This is also dumb. This right here is like a uber bin of single rank Samsung B-die, I think. I'm assuming 7. Yeah, this is an uber bin of single rank Samsung B-die. I'd love to get my hands on a memory kit like that someday, but I don't want to pay $400 for it. Like it's again, it's the overclocker side of me is like, oh, that would be fun to play with, but $400 is way too much. Anyway, then we get to the sort of like reasonably priced looking memory kits like this 5333 over here. And this is the kind of thing you should just like, and when I say reasonably, it's not reasonable at all. And it's even less reasonable once you realize that this is CJR. And that TRCD right there, the 22, 32, 32, like those two 32s right there are very, very bad for performance. I have multiple Hynix DJR kits. I have very little content with Hynix DJR kits because I have never figured out how to get them to like perform well. Okay? Like it's one thing when you pay, $75 for a 3616 bin, which can be CJR, DJR, like a bunch of different memory chips like that. It's another thing when you spend, $330 on a memory kit that just gets dunked on by a $100 B-die kit. Because that's exactly what happens if you buy one of these. Also, the compatibility for this stuff is an absolute nightmare. Like this doesn't they're having a CPU that can run this is quite hard. Let's just put it that way. Like you need a really good motherboard, a really good CPU, and then the performance sucks anyway. So I don't know why you these are. I would consider this a noob trap of a memory kit. Please do not buy this. Like it is absolutely just it performs like just no. Yeah, just no. Like if it was $100, sure. If $300, well, actually, even at $100, I wouldn't pay that much. Like if it was $80, I'd consider it. At $100, at over $100, hell no. I'd much rather have a Samsung B-die kit. So let's keep scrolling down and actually get to some reasonable kits. So this goes for everything in this like crazy speed range. And the main thing to watch out for if you're considering like really high speed kits is the timings. Right? Like 20, 30, 30, Hynix DJR. Trash. Like from at $250, trash. Like you can literally get dual rank B-die for that much. And way better performance. Just also more RAM. Like you'll have 32 gigs of B-die for the same price with better performance and just, yeah. Anyway, but you also get, I think, actually, no, this will be a B-die kit, isn't it? Yeah, this is 17, 18, 18. So this is actually like, this is a good memory bin. This won't be Hynix DJR, but it is still very expensive. From a performance per dollar perspective, it doesn't really make a ton of sense. It's just kind of like, interesting toys for overclockers. Is what that is right there. Anyway, let's keep scrolling through. Oh, this right here, Thermaltake, as far as I know, uses a lot of Hynix, and we don't have full timings, because why would you have full timings? Let's see what Newegg lists. Please tell me they list the full timings. They don't list the full timings, because why would you list the full timings when it makes it obvious that you've got a bunch of DJR under the heat spreaders? Man. Like, yep, nope. Like, I've complained about this with Corsair and Patriot, where for some, like, at one point they removed TRCD from their specs pages, and I was not happy about it. So, anyway, so Thermaltake uses DJR. Paying anywhere, like, anything over $100 for Hynix DJR is a waste of money. Speaking of Hynix DJR, that's also what these sticks are. Yeah, 2026. That's just straight up tells you right off the bat this is Hynix DJR. At $180, not worth it. Absolutely not worth it. So let's take a look at something that is worth it, which should be on page 3, because I very intelligently decided to go from most expensive to least expensive. Now, let's see, where is it? Okay, so you have 3200 CL15 B-die, which is, it's a B-die bin. It's not great. But it is an option. Like this probably won't be like this should be halfway decent in terms of B-die quality. But the real just like this is it. This is peak memory kit right here. What's really cool about these DIMMs is I actually have a set of these that were sent in by a viewer. These have an XMP. These come with 2 XMP profiles. So you get a 4000 CL16 and you get a 3600 CL14 XMP on these DIMMs. So even if you put these like, because the thing is DDR4 4000, this is really more meant for like 10th gen Intel, because a lot of 12th gen chips won't really want to run this. And 11th gen, you can forget about it. The 11th gen memory controller is an absolute pile of trash. But because this has a 3600 CL14 XMP built in, even if you have a CPU that really can't do 4000 CL16, you can switch it over to the 3600 CL14 XMP, and that's really cool. However, most of the value of this memory kit comes from the fact that it's Samsung B-Die, and you should manually tune it, and basically it doesn't really, like, the performance hierarchy for DDR4 right now is you have Samsung B-Die at the top, and the only thing that's better than Samsung B-Die is higher like chip quality Samsung B-Die, which 4000 CL16 is already very good chip quality. Um, so yeah, like at $100, this is like the memory kit to get if you like if you're prioritizing performance on a 2x8 setup. Um, it is worth noting that I think you can get dual rank DDR4 for less than this. Actually, yeah, buying two 3200, well, no, because buying two 3200 CL16 kits, if you get like the wrong set of memory chips across your two memory kits, you might be in a world of hurt. So that's kind of like, that would ultimately be the most cost-effective option, right? Like getting two $50 kits, putting them together, you get your dual rank performance boost, and even if the timings aren't that tight, like it's still dual rank. It just demolishes single rank memory setups because dual rank. The problem is if one of those two kits, like if those if you buy two 3200 CL16 kits and the memory chips aren't matched properly, like things will be very bad. So yeah, while this doesn't make like then you might go like, oh, but 2x16 kits exist. Well, yes, but 2x16 kits these days can be single rank a lot of the time. And so in that scenario, this will actually like just like if you don't need 32 gigs of memory, as in you just don't have a bunch of crap all open all the time, you can totally like this will actually outperform a 32 gig kit. As long as you don't run out of memory. If you run out of memory, then yeah, you definitely want the 32 gig kit instead. But if you don't leave a bunch of crap running open, like crap running in in the background, a 2x8 kit of Samsung B-Die is sort of the peak of performance at the $100 mark, I think. Yeah, like at least without having to jump through any crazy hoops potentially. Um, Anyway, if we keep scrolling down, we also have a 3600 CL14 bin from Patriot. I have no idea how Patriot does this. Like they are so much cheaper than everybody else when it comes to B-Die kits. Oh, and then we have the 4400 CL19s. I have two sets of this stuff because not only is it cheap in the US, it's also cheap in the UK. Um, this stuff's great. Like, really good. For a pretty long time, it was some of the best memory I had. And then eventually G-Skill sent me a 4000 CL14 kit, and that was better. But very slightly, like literally very, very slightly better. It's like 50 millivolts for the same, yeah, literally like 50 millivolts lower voltage for the same settings in terms of primary timings. The sub timings are the same. So, yeah, so like all three of these just, if you're looking for Samsung B-Die and you want it cheap, like I have no complaints for these Patriots Viper Steel kits. Because this is like flat 19s, this is 1416. And this is 4000 flat 16, which, yeah, like great kits. Really, like I don't get how Patriot manages to make them so cheap. Because like for comparison, right? G-Skill has this 4266 CL19, but this is 1926. This is Hynix DJR, maybe Micron E-Die. It's just yeah, like it's like the same price. Like you could spend $95 on a 4400 CL19 B-Die kit, which like is great, or you could have DJR for like the same price. So yeah, I don't know how Patriot does this, because this is just insane. Like they are selling B-Die for like half the price of what other vendors sell those bins for. And also I think this is still B-Die. Oh yeah, 19 flat 19s at 4000. This is B-Die. You can get $90 Samsung B-Die. Holy damn. Like, actually, yeah, like, so Patriot Viper Steels are just still, like, if you, like, I don't get it. I don't get how Patriot manages to sell these so damn cheap, compared to everybody else. Like, admittedly, the XMPs on these are kind of aggressive, so they're not super, like, especially these are very difficult to work with if you don't know what you're doing. Because these have they have a 4400 and they have a 4266 XMP on them. And even 4266 is actually quite a workout for a lot of CPUs. So, yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, this kit is kind of not very beginner friendly. Because there's a decent chance you turn the XMP on and it won't work, and that's not the memory kit's fault. That's just CPUs can't like CPUs don't reliably hit speeds this fast, and a lot of motherboards don't do speeds this fast very reliably. So yeah, but if you're into overclocking your RAM, or you want to get into overclocking your RAM, like, you can't go wrong with Samsung B-die kits. And worst case scenario, you could take pretty much any of these, set it to like 3600, and then set your primaries to 16, 16, 16, and that's pretty much guaranteed to work. So yeah, so those are really, really cool. And I don't think, like, unfortunately, I don't think any other brand has a competitor to the just insanity that Patriot is shipping. Yeah, because like G-Skill has this 1824, which is like I saw 4400 CL18 and I was like, that's a bit aggressive for DJR. But then you scroll down and it's like, oh, 1824, yeah, it's DJR. Like, it's DJR with a lot of voltage, but that doesn't change the fact that it's still DJR. So, and like, it is more expensive, isn't it? Where was that? Yeah, that's 4400, $18400. There's a 3200 CL14, but well, you have to manually tune that because 3200 CL14 on auto settings is like it's like it'll actually just straight up lose to something like this. And especially on Ryzen, it'll just get completely like dunked on because freaking Infinity Fabric clocks. So on Intel, it's less one-sided in favor of the like CJR bins, but yeah, like 3200 CL14 is like you have to manually tune that because otherwise you're just overpaying for something that performs like that performs very similarly to a 3200 CL16 kit. Um, anyway, what else do we have here? I did like the thing. I guess the actually this is the 1820 bin, isn't it? Yeah, this is the 182040. So this should still be Samsung B-die. Yeah, because DJR is typically binned for 1822 at 4000, not 1820. So a good example of what I'm talking about would be probably this, right? This is 18. Yeah, so this is a DJR. So 4018 with 1.35 volts, but 182222 versus the 182020. So basically, really, if you're trying to find like B-die memory kits, the thing you want to look for is that the TRCD is so the trick I use is you do so for this is a 4000 rated kit, so you do 4000 and you divide it by the TRCD. If the number is 200 or higher, it's pretty much guaranteed to be B-die, with the exception of Crucial. Crucial is only selling Micron, and Crucial also somehow managed to bin Micron, or I don't know what they did. I don't know if it's a binning thing or if it's like a PCB optimization thing on their memory sticks, but somehow Micron, like Crucial is shipping Micron chips with like TRCD 19 at 4000 megabits per second, which nobody else does. Like, there is not a single other manufacturer who's shipping Micron sticks with timings that aggressive. They still lose to Samsung B-die, by the way. Just, yeah, like, as cool as an achievement that is on Crucial's part, manually tuned B-die beats everything. It's actually kind of annoying how B-die, like, on DDR3, there was like a pretty good variety of like competitive memory chips. On DDR4, it's just like, it's just B-die. There's nothing else, which makes it a bit boring. But yeah, so this is like $110. So really not a great deal, but I guess if you can't get the Patriot kits, then this is an option. Does Corsair have any good options? No, Corsair has a bunch of overpriced 3200 CL16 Dominators, of course, because why the hell not? Why is there so much like 3200 CL16 at $100? Who buys this? Like, you can get 3200 CL16 for $50 right now. I do not understand how there are $100 3200 CL16 kits. That just makes zero sense to me. Um, Let me guess, 1822, trash. Oh my, yeah, trash. Um, so that I think concludes the 2x8 portion of this video, and that took 34 minutes, so we're off to a good start. Also, if you're on Ryzen, it's actually a very safe bet. Like, if you're on Ryzen and you want 32 gigs of Samsung B-Die, it's actually not that cost ineffective to just buy, like, 2 kits of this, or, like, 2 kits of this, 2 kits of any of the Patriot sticks, and just put them together. Because as long as you have a... So there are certain motherboards... So as long as you have a 6-layer Gigabyte board, or a 6-layer MSI, or a 4-layer ASRock. Actually, I'm not sure if the 4-layer Gigabyte boards are... Nah, they probably are. They probably are. Yeah, but like Ryzen's 4x8 support is actually quite good on like higher end ASRock, MSI, and Gigabyte boards. Basically north of $150. The motherboards should be able to run 4x8 up to 4,000 or higher. Like they'll actually max out your CPUs. Like your Infinity Fabric is probably going to be the limiting factor for you, not the motherboard. So yeah, that's kind of like, so if you're kind of thinking of doing like a... No, that doesn't really make sense right now because the 5800X3D exists, and basically you buy a 5800X3D and then your memory performance is borderline irrelevant because you've got all that L3 cache. I guess if you were buying a 5950X or 5900X, then, 4x8 Samsung B-Die would be sort of like the peak performance memory configuration you would be looking at. But it wouldn't be a very cost-effective memory configuration. And for 12th gen Intel, the 4x8 memory support is a bit iffy, so I wouldn't really recommend it there. 4x8 B-Die support is a bit iffy, because the thing with Samsung B-Die is while it gets great performance results, it's also really hard on the CPU's memory controller. And so running many sticks of Samsung B-Die tends to come with challenges. Ryzen has no issues with it. As long as you have like a good motherboard for Ryzen, it's not a problem. But on the Intel side of things, 4x8 B-Die kits can be kind of interesting. Let's put it that way to set up. So now we're going to switch over from 2x8 DDR4 to 2x16 DDR4, which unfortunately is like... Well, on the low end, things are pretty cool because you get 3200 CL16 kits for like $80, which is neat. Like that's actually pretty cool. And you also have like the 3200 CL22 kit over here, which is like the really good compatibility option. But the problem with with the 2x16 kits is that until basically you have 16 gigabit memory chips from all of the big memory manufacturers. So Samsung has M-Die, which is terrible. I think there's an A-Die from Samsung, which I don't know how that is. There's Hynix, I think AJR, 16 gigabit. That stuff is like DJR, but bigger. So there's like some crazy, really high clocked 2x16 kits, like this right here. Yeah, so this is exactly what I want. 20, yeah. So this will be Hynix AJR, and single rank, and the performance at this price, at this speed, is going to be trash. Avoid it. Okay? Like, do not get this. Like, don't. Yeah, there is not a single reason I can think of to justify buying this memory kit, whatsoever. Just don't, okay? Because if you're on 12th gen Intel, this will put you well into Gear 2. Gear 2 is bad for performance. Trash timings, like when they're this bad, are actually bad for performance. Do not buy high clock, loose timed 2x16 kits. They're single rank Hynix memory chips. The performance is gonna suck. Like, It's going to suck doubly because, like, one, you've got like memory chips that don't do tight timings, so you can't, like, if you decide to manually overclock it, you're screwed. You're in gear 2, so performance just generally is not going to be that great. 3, it's single rank, so you're going to get absolutely demolished by a dual rank kit in terms of performance. So this stuff really dumb. There's an awful lot of like really high clocked garbage tier DDR4, because like Hynix figured out how to make high clocking memory chips, and apparently those memory chips are really cheap. So, well, I don't know if they're really cheap, but we get a lot of like memory kits where it's like, oh yeah, it clocks high and the performance is very low, but it costs way too much. Um, anyway, uh, yeah, so that's kind of the bad news with 2x16 on the like high speed end. Just avoid anything rated for over like 4,000. Well, you don't need to avoid everything rated over 4,000, but the thing is you need to avoid everything that doesn't follow the TRCD, 4,000 divided by 20 rule. So like that kit was 4,800 with a TRCD of 30. That's 160. Is very bad. So anyway, let's take a look around at some other cost-effective options. I'd like to find a 3600 CL16 kit, ideally for not an insane price tag. Like basically, if we can get a 3600 CL16 under like, oh look at that, 3618. That's not like it's not going to be dual rank. It's not going to be amazing, but it will avoid the potential compatibility issues of mixing and matching two cheap 3600 CL18 kits of 2x8. Again, this might not run particularly well on 12th gen Intel CPUs if they don't have a K at the end of their name, but for Ryzen, this is actually an interesting option. If you have a 5800X3D, then actually this is perfectly acceptable because your RAM is no longer relevant. Thanks to all of that L3 cache. Like, that is one thing I am kind of wondering about is like, if this trend of just massive amounts of L3 cache continues, are we going to hit a point where the CPU just like doesn't care about memory latency at all because there's just so much L3 cache that the RAM doesn't matter? Because the 5800X3D already basically does that. Like it barely, the performance of a 5800X3D barely changes as you overclock the memory, because it just doesn't hit the memory that often, like not in a like a performance critical manner. And so yeah, if we get more high cache CPUs like that, like RAM overclocking might just die because it's like why bother when the CPU performs the same with 3200 CL16 as it does with like 3800 CL14 with super tight timings, which is actually kind of what the 5800X3D is doing right now. Like there's very little difference in performance as you clock that CPU, as you like overclock memory on that CPU. Oh, this is interesting. I'm assuming this is Hynix, isn't it? Yep, 1822. Right. Again, we take our formula. We look at TRCD. TRCD is 22, so we go 4,000. We divide it by no, that's not 4,000. I mean, it doesn't have to be 4,000. 22, 181. That's less than 200. Therefore, not B die. Or at least not guaranteed. But yeah, like I wouldn't be rushing out to buy that. So this is an interesting option. Obviously, the cheap stuff is also an option. Yeah, but let's just keep going along and see what we can find. We have some 3618 from Neo Forza. We have some 2666 for a 122. What the hell? We have a 3618 from Corsair. That like it's not super cheap, but it's an option, right? Like because if you can't find this $105 kit, then you should be able to find this 122. Actually, maybe let's try find a 3618 that isn't quite so expensive. There's a Guile kit for 3618. I mean for 113. Also, these heat spreaders look really good. I miss things having colors. Like RGB has killed color in PC hardware. Like everything is just black or gray, and then there's LEDs on it. It's just like, but I want blue. Actually, I don't want blue memory sticks. Blue is a horrible color, but red memory sticks, green memory sticks, literally anything but black, please. Thank you. Um, oh, and white. White is also a color that we have. Um, 3600. Oh, there we have a RGB version of that at slightly lower price, so that's neat. Um, yeah, so it looks like Team Group has a bunch of really cost-effective options as well at 30, like for 3618 at $105. Should be a bit easier to find, I think. Oh no, these are just Amazon. Um, oh, Patriot. I love the look of these heat spreaders. There was a red version. They discontinued that because RGB. So, yeah. Unfortunately, they never used these heat spreaders on any like high-end memory kits, so I don't have any, even though I think they look cool. Anyway, $105, so that's an option. Anyway, let's keep going. What do we have here? Oh, we have a B-die bin. This 3200 CL14. Again, you need to manually overclock this, or especially on Ryzen, it would. Actually, with dual rank, so the funny thing is, once you hit dual rank, things get a lot better. Because like dual rank is kind of like having 400 megabits per second more memory speed in terms of what it does to your performance. And so this would actually probably tie a memory kit like this. No, actually, it might beat it. Yeah, because like you have a pretty like 14, 14, 14 versus 18, 20. Like the thing is, this isn't just 18. This is 1822. And the TRCD hurts. It really does. So yeah, this would actually be a bit faster, but it's $200. So you're paying like twice as much for slightly better performance, which is why like the 3200 CL14 kits, in my opinion, like this is not a good performance per dollar option. This is like, I want B-die to manually tune it option. So yeah, it's not cost effective, but if you want a cheap source of Samsung B-die, that seems to be the cheapest it gets right now. Corsair, for some reason, also likes to stick B-die into their 3466 CL16 bin, but this could easily be some kind of Hynix memory chips as well, because it's 161818 and 161818. If we do our 3466 divided by 18, yeah, that's just under 200, and you can get CJR in a 1618 at 3466 as a bin. So this could be dual rank CJR, and if you got to like dual rank CJR for $200 would just be, to me, that is completely unacceptable. Though I have seen a lot of these Corsair 3466 CL16 kits be Samsung B-die, it's just not guaranteed, and it could be DJR. It could be CJR, and so it's just like, yeah, I don't think I would like, given the choice between definitely B-die and probably B-die, I will take definitely B-die, even if the XMP is a bit slower, because if you're buying B-die, you shouldn't be using the XMP anyway. You should be manually tuning it, or you're wasting your money. Anyway, let's take a look around for something that's actually not completely insane in terms of cost per dollar, like performance per dollar, which is looking kind of difficult. I was hoping to see there we go, a 3616. Though the thing is, this could be... Oh, we don't have a full timing set. The thing is, Kingston likes to use a lot of Hynix. So this is probably some kind of Hynix. It could be single rank. If it's single rank, that really sucks. Actually, Kingston, I think they straight up publish... Let's actually look this up, because I think they have PDFs, and they mention how many memory ranks they have, I think. Rank? No? Wait, this is 1620. Ooh. Okay. 16 internal banks, 4 groups, 4 banks each. That's normal? Wait. 2RX8. Oh, yeah. No, this is dual rank. Oh, actually, that's really cool. Yeah, so this actually... How much is this? 162. This is a bit much. This is like... it's not as cheap as I'd like it to be, but it's guaranteed to be dual rank, and that makes a performance difference, a pretty significant one. Um, so yeah. Also, it's really cool that like Kingston does this for their memory kits, that like they specify how many memory ranks, because a lot of the other vendors because Corsair is especially bad with this. Like for a bin like this, it could literally be anything under the sun. Actually, at one point in time, Corsair was shipping B-die kits in 3618. Um, not in 1822, but in 1819. But I think they discontinued the 1819 bin because it doesn't make sense anymore with the other memory chips that came out later. Um, but anyway, so that Kingston kit is a interesting option. I wonder if this. Oh, this is an RGB version of that, isn't it? Let's just look it up just in case, because like they have these data sheets available. We may as well use them. PDF. So yeah, that's the RGB 2RX8. Yep. Yeah, so I guess if you want dual rank Hynix in RGB, this is an option at $160 on Amazon. Ooh, 3733. Man, 3733 is a memory speed that I really wish more manufacturers would use, because this is actually like the comfortable limit for Ryzen. Like 3800 and higher is difficult with Ryzen, potentially. 3733 is like, I have not seen a CPU that can't do 3733. That's not a thing. They don't make Ryzen chips that can't do 3733. So instead of like G-Skill had a 3800 CL14 bin, which is like, that might not necessarily work on every CPU, but a 3733 CL14 would. Like, there is no way you can find a CPU that wouldn't do 3733 CL14. So I think it's a real shame that like the standard speeds are like 3600, and then they just kind of skip to 4000. There are some like 3866 kits, but those aren't really ideal. But yeah, like I think like a 3733 CL16 bin would be really cool for Ryzen. But nobody makes that. It's not a thing. Anyway, we've got 3618 at $150. That's way too much. 3616 at 142, but this is from Corsair, so who knows what's under those heat spreaders. Got Crucial 3200 CL16. Like that again, there's no guarantee as to what you're going to get under those heat spreaders. So ideally, Fury Renegade. Man, if this is dual rank, the funny thing is like dual rank is such a massive performance uplift that this would potentially be a better option than some of the 3600 like loose. Like, yeah, like a single rank 36. This is still dual rank. Damn. And also, this is like. Kingston does use. Well, no. So Kingston does use a lot of Micron. They also use a. Like, recently, they've started using more and more Samsung. There was a period of time when Kingston didn't use Samsung at all. You couldn't get a Samsung based Kingston kit because I think there was some like argument between them or something, and so they stopped buying Samsung memory chips. But anyway, yeah, at this point that doesn't really apply as far as I know. So this could be all kinds of things, but at least it's dual rank. So the like performance per clock on this is going to be really, really solid, and it might actually just straight like it probably just straight up outperforms a 3600 CL18. Yeah. Even on Ryzen, with the funny thing with Ryzen, so if you have a Ryzen CPU and you have like a 3200 CL16 dual rank kit, what you can do is you can unlink the Infinity Fabric and run it at 1866, and that'll generally give you better overall performance than running the Infinity Fabric at 1600. Because the Infinity Fabric clock is so important for memory latency on its own that it'll just offset the penalty for not being synchronized. At least, yeah, like it should do that. You might want to run a quick benchmark just to make sure that that's actually happening, because it's a while since I've done that testing, but yeah. Anyway, so that's an interesting option just because it's guaranteed to be dual rank, but at $130 that is a bit, yeah, it's not great. Like, unfortunately 2x16 kits, like, you have like the cheap 2x16 kits where it's like, who knows what memory chips it has. It might be dual rank, it might be single rank, who knows. Um and then you've got, well, I mean, we know for sure that this, well, nah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that's almost certainly single rank right there. But yeah, like the fact that you can get, like, because the thing is, going from single rank to dual rank, like, that's a pretty big performance difference. That's actually a bigger performance difference than, well, no, like I said, it's basically like 400 megabits per second more memory speed. So it's like going from 3200 to 3600. Um, kinda. In certain workloads, it actually does more than that, but yeah. So anyway, let's, I mean, we've already looked at the HP V10 B-die kit, and yeah, I don't see, like, I know some people might be like, HP doesn't, it's not a brand that inspires confidence, but the thing is, I can't imagine that HP is actually making those memory sticks. They're probably just putting heat spreaders on somebody else's RAM. Actually, I'm pretty sure I got an email from the company that makes the memory sticks for HP. And it literally is just like they're rebranding somebody else's memory sticks. So, yeah. Um, I can't remember who it was, but it was like some big memory like big memory OEM. So, um, yeah, I wouldn't worry about those not being like proper memory sticks. Like, no. Um, RAM is RAM. Like, there's big OEMs that make a lot of memory PCBs. Like, there's very little reason to bake like weird custom stuff for memory kits right now. That's not really a thing. Um, okay, let's see. 3616. Am I going to be disappointed? Yes, I am, because that's 1619. Yeah, like, please don't buy CJR for almost $200. That's way too much to be paying for that. Got 4018. Nope. 20. Oh no. Yeah, 2x16 kits are just not great in terms of performance per dollar. This is interesting. Yeah, this, unfortunately, Team Group is one of the vendors where these guys, like, Team Group makes some of the best. Actually, yeah, for a while, so this is really frustrating because Team Group sent me a 3600 CL14 kit, and the XMP had garbage tier timings. Now, depending on your motherboard, that's not necessarily a problem because some motherboards will just ignore the XMP. Like, they'll apply the primary timings and they'll ignore the sub timings. But the sub timings on like, I don't know if this kit is affected by that. I would hope not, because I told Team Group, like, look, you can't have XMPs that have sub timings this loose. Like, it tanks performance. If you put this on if I put that memory kit on an ASRock motherboard, you turn the XMP on, performance goes down compared to JDEC. Like, not even like compared to 3200 CL16 or something. No. Compared to freaking JDEC, performance goes down when you turn on a 3600 CL14 XMP because the sub timings are so incredibly bad, and I have no idea why they did that. So yeah, so that's kind of the thing with the Team Group 3614 kits is, like, you can't, like, on MSI boards you should be fine. On Asus boards, if you use there's an option on Asus boards so that the board, like, uses an Asus timing profile. Use the Asus timing profile when you're enabling XMP. It says something like Asus optimizes your memory. Do the Asus optimizes the memory. But on Gigabyte and ASRock boards, those boards load full XMPs just straight from the memory stick, and some vendors like to put trash in their XMPs, and Team Group is one of those vendors, and for some reason, like, I've had it happen with one of their 3600 CL14 kits. So if you're like this is a memory kit I would probably totally be willing to buy, but I wouldn't run it at XMP. So, like, that's kind of the thing, is, like, to me it's not really a problem because I'm never going to use the XMP, so the fact that it's screwed up is not really a concern. But yeah, that is a thing that you can run into with some of the higher end kits from certain manufacturers. Now, Crucial is a safe bet, but 3616 from them is probably going to be single rank. B-die micron. Um, so, which is really fun if you're into like high clock speeds and don't care about performance, because it's another one of those. It's like the Hynix, like the single rank Hynix high clock kits, where it's like it clocks really high and it looks cool, but the performance is not great, especially compared to dual rank kits. So yeah, I think this Kingston kit is probably dual rank, but at 4,000 and this price point, like you should just get B-die instead, in my opinion. Um, I'm trying to find like another cheap 3200 CL14 option. Not that. 30, yeah, no, we already clicked on that one. Yeah, the thing is like dual rank B-die sticks are expensive as hell. Like single rank B-die, cheap. You can get that for like, $50 a stick. But as soon as you want 16 gig DIMMs of B-die, you're paying like $60 instead of 50, which doesn't sound like a huge difference until you consider that like once you're buying 4 sticks, that's $40. That's like an entire air cooler or a much better power supply, that kind of thing. And personally, yeah, I probably wouldn't trade power supply quality for a memory kit. But this is a solid option as a memory kit. Like this is a good memory kit. This is $240, so it is not cost effective by any means. Like at this point, we're well into the pricing territory of like straight up DDR5, and properly set up DDR5 just kind of beats even dual rank Samsung B-die. So, yeah, like you know, like if you're on Ryzen, you don't really have the DDR5 option. But you do have the 5800X 3D option, in which case you don't really have to worry about what your memory is because you've got a L3 cache for days. So, yeah, and then we've got like a 4016 from G-Skill. Like this is a really cool speed bin, but like from a performance per dollar perspective, this is terrible. Like this is really, really expensive. It's not going to be like, if you manually set up those Patriot, those like 2x8 Patriot Vipers on like, if you buy 2 sets of those 2x8 Patriot Viper steels that we saw earlier in the video, like you could easily match or beat the performance of this kit. Same goes for this one. Like you could certainly match the performance. At least with Ryzen motherboards. On Intel, the 2x16 kits should have a pretty significant advantage, but yeah, so 2x16 at the high end is kind of painful. Now let's take a look at some 2x32 options. Because 2x32, yeah, man, it's crazy. Like that's the thing with freaking Samsung B-die kits, right? Is like you buy $250 worth of memory, you can literally get twice the capacity for less money. And this is guaranteed to be dual rank. It is physically impossible to make a single rank 2x32 memory kit. There's no memory chips that'll do that right now for DDR4. So literally any 2x32 kit you buy is guaranteed dual rank. Now, again, if you want like guaranteed compatibility, 3200 CL22 is a JEDEC spec. This has to work. So this is sort of the safe option. And we're just going to close all of this now. So that right there has to work, but it's not super cost effective. You have options like 3200 CL16 from Oloy. And yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about buying that. Let's check the timings on that. What is it? 1620. I feel like that could almost be Samsung M-die, because Samsung M-die is it's rough. It'll do 3200, but it is really rough. So this could be Samsung M-die. Even then, it's like I feel like if you're buying 64 gigs of RAM, you're probably like a video editor or something, and you're probably not going to be manually overclocking your system, because you care about the integrity of your files a lot more than like gamers do. So, yeah. Yeah, so that like I wouldn't have any concerns buying a 3200 CL16 at 165. Like I'd go for it, because to some extent RAM is RAM, and it doesn't stop being RAM until you try to buy two different two kits and then find out that actually one of them has memory chips that are completely incompatible with the other, and you can't run them together. And then RAM stops being RAM, and we need to start worrying about what the memory chips actually are, right? So that's kind of the thing with RAM. So anyway, let's keep going through and see what else there is. We've got 3618 for $200. I mean, no, for Ryzen, that's an interesting option. We have 3618 from Team Group. I think I actually have a 3618 kit from Team Group. It's very solid. No weirdness with the timings on that one. I still don't get why it's the 3600 CL14 kit that gave me so many issues. Like, that makes zero sense, because, like, I've had other kits from Team Group which are completely fine, and then it's just, like, the really high-end one, and it's just trash timings. So, yeah, I don't know. Trash sub-timings. The primaries were fine. Like, the primaries were really good, but... Anyway, yeah, so, like, these 3618 kits from Team Group, like, I'd for Ryzen, for K Intel chips, because non-Ks might not run them. Though you could always take one of these and just drop it down to 3466 and it'll be fine. And on Intel, your cast latency isn't limited to odd values only. So you could probably go from like 3618 to 346617, and it would make very little difference. You could actually, like, it would be just fine to run it at 346618. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't actually bother changing the timings. I would literally, like, if I was doing like a 12700F or something based build, right, like a non-K 12th gen Intel CPU, and I bought this memory kit and the CPU couldn't run the XMP in Gear 1, I would just drop it to 3466 and call it a day. I wouldn't like, unless I wanted to manually overclock it, right? Like, drop it to 3466, call it a day, and don't worry about the fact that it's a TCL 18. That doesn't really matter that much. What else do we have? We have more 3618. Unfortunately, 32 gig DIMMs don't really have any like super strong memory chip options. Now, we do have the 64 gig kit from G-Skill, which this is very much Hynix, because of course it is, but like, you can't get Samsung BDI in 32 gig DIMMs, because Samsung BDI, like the really great overclocking chip, that stuff is 8 gigabit. You can't put enough of them onto a single, like, you can't make a 32 gig stick with those, unfortunately. And you really shouldn't run 4 ranks of, like, you shouldn't put two 2x16 BDI kits together, because they are hell for the memory controller. It is incredibly difficult to run them at high speeds. Once you have that many BDI memory chips connected to the CPU. So, yeah, so this is some kind of Hynix. This is an awkward speed bin. For like 10th gen Intel, this is actually pretty cool. For Ryzen, this doesn't make sense. For 12th gen, this doesn't make sense. Because the thing with 12th gen is you have to get lucky in order to have a memory controller that'll do 4000 on dual rank, even if you have a K CPU. Like, my 12900K will not do 4000 with dual rank memory kits at all. It sucks. So, my 12600KF, on the other hand, could probably run this just fine, but yeah, that's one of the concern was with, like, so non-K Intel, you might not be able to do 3600, and with K Intel, 12th gen, you might not be able to do 4000. You should be able to do 3866, but 3866 is another one of those speeds that memory manufacturers just completely ignore. So we do have a 3600 CL16 option, and I guess this would be sort of the performance choice for... Okay, I changed my mind. Like, okay, so... This... Yeah, so this right here is a beginner... Like, this is a trap for people who don't know how RAM works. Because this and this is functionally the same thing. Yeah. Like, this will have no noticeable performance improvement compared to this. And you're going to be spending $50 extra on it. Like, nope. Like, I was expecting it to be like 1619. But 1622? Hell no. Because 1822 and 1622 are functionally the same thing. You won't be able to tell a difference. You'll have a hell of a time measuring one. You run this through benchmarks, and these two memory kits will be incredibly close in terms of performance. There will be a difference if you find there are memory benchmarks that are sensitive enough that you will pick up on a 2-tick cast latency difference, but you have to look for those. You have to find a benchmark that's that sensitive. Most things will not this is the same thing. This is not worth it. This is not at all worth it. This is a trap for people who don't know any better. Because that TRCD, no. Just get this instead. Save your money, get the same performance. I am... Well, I mean, am I disappointed in G-Skill? I'm gonna guess that G-Skill is fully aware of what they're doing with that price. Actually, G-Skill has a better option themselves. There's this 1822 $200 kit from G-Skill, right? So you could get that instead of the Team Group kit. It's not like I'm pushing Team Group here. It's just buy a 3618 that's cheaper than a 3600 1622, right? 1822 versus 1622, get the 1822 because it's cheaper. It's really not much more complicated than that. So I guess there's really no high performance options for 2x32 from what I'm seeing right now. Cause yeah, it gets very, very expensive, but the timings aren't really getting better. This is going to be a nightmare to run on anything. For 10th gen Intel, this might be good. For everything else, it's just no, please no. Yeah, so 2x32 is rough. It's really rough, but yeah, that's the thing is it used to be that there was Crucial had these just awesome 3600 CL16, 19, actually no, 16, 18 kits. But I think they're discontinued now. And those are great. Those are Micron memory chips. They're 16 gigabit BDI Micron. And they're awesome. They're really, really good. But I don't think they sell them anymore. So yeah. And the other options that exist, right now for 32x32, just get the cheapest 3618 kit you can find. Because spending almost $300 on a 3616 with a TRCD of 22 is a total waste of money. Yeah, so that's G-Skill has a 3618. We have a Patriot. Oh, right. We have the Patriot 3618 for under 200. Another Patriot 3618 for under 200. Another 3620 for under 200. You still probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Oh, no, this is a 2026. Okay, actually, that you might be able to tell the difference. Yeah, 2026, that you would probably be able to tell the difference, and it's not much cheaper. So in this case, 1822 is kind of for 2x32 is sort of what I would go for. Some kind of 3600 1822 kit. Try to get it around $200 basically, because that seems to be where you can get a lot of those. And this right here, yeah, don't. Just don't. No, absolutely hell no. Because what's basically going on here is, so the memory, well, not all of the memory chips, but a lot of the memory chips that get used in these 3600 CL18 kits are memory chips that don't, actually, the vast majority of DDR4 memory chips, the cast latency timing scales with voltage, which means if you shove more voltage into the memory chip, the cast latency can be lower. Right, and this is a 1.35 volt kit. Yeah, 1.35 volts. This one is also 1.35 volts. I mean, this is the 20. We should delete that one. That one's terrible. But this G-Skill kit, right? They've just bumped up the voltage to 1.45 volts, and that's why it can run CL16. They've basically taken a 3618 bumped up the voltage and lowered the cast latency for you, and it'll make zero perceptible difference to performance. And it costs so much more, right? Like this is $280. G-Skill has a 3600 CL18 for 200 or 230 if you don't want to get it from Amazon and want to get it from Newegg, which is still a lot cheaper. That's still $50 and for no performance difference. Well, not literally no, but like I'd get this instead. I see no reason to spend extra money when they're literally just lowering the cast latency. That's not going to make a difference that you'll ever notice. But yeah, and so that's kind of that. So that's the 2x32 portion of DDR4, and that covers all of the DDR4 options. Because, well, actually, you know what? Let's go and take a peek at the absolute hellscape that is 4x8 memory kits. Oh, this isn't too bad. Oh, no, it is. Well, no, this isn't too bad. Yeah. I mean, you are paying a premium compared to just buying two $50 2x8 kits, but at least you know for sure that it's going to work together, which you don't know if you're buying two separate 2x8 kits, because, yeah, like, there's no guarantees that they're all going to have the same memory chips. But anyway, let's keep scrolling through. So, you know, we have a 3200 CL16 option for 115, which I guess, fine, whatever. We have a 3618 for 160, which is, I'd say, a bit. That's not a bit too much. That's just straight up too much. But there's a 3600 CL16 option for 150, which I'm okay with. Yeah, that's basically the same as if you bought two CJR kits separately. Like that if you buy two 2x8 CJR kits for $75, like that'll basically be the same as this. So this is actually not a completely stupid option. 1619, yeah, this is basically like a pre-tested set of like a pre-tested set of CJR sticks or DJR sticks or something. So, or Micron. Corsair uses a lot of Micron, so this is a good option. For 4x8. Are you? Oh, I still have water. Been talking too long. Anyway, let's keep going. So yeah, this is cool, and let's see if there's anything like no. Is this good or is this bad? Let's find out. Oh, it's good. I mean, it costs more than just buying two sets of Patriot Viper steels, but it's not that much more expensive than two sets of Patriot Viper steels. So that's not a bad option. And also, this comes with a very usable XMP compared to the Viper steels, which, like, especially the cheap ones are like 4,019.19, which is like, yeah, that's not going to run on a lot of CPUs, especially if you buy 4 of them. So, yeah, but I'm not seeing any other, like, particularly great options, am I? I know this is just 1619, but massively overpriced because it's got RGB on it. 3617. This is probably a B-die bin, but a really sketchy one. Yeah, this is the barely B-die bin. Like, it just fits within the rule of you take your 3600, you divide it by 18, 200. This is just within the tolerance for being B-die. It's probably not going to be very good. Actually, that's not true. I have a 3600 CL17 stick that's actually, like, I have two 3600 CL17 sticks that are acceptable B-die quality. Like, they're not the worst sticks I have. So, yeah, but, like, well, okay, I'm in the UK, but $200 for that. I'd just get the Patriot sticks instead. Those Patriot sticks are really, really good. So, Yeah, like unfortunately 4x8, like basically once you hit $200, you could buy the Patriot Viper Steels instead, is the way I see it. Because the main thing you're paying for when you're buying a 4x8 kit is that they've checked, like, is that they're gonna all be the same memory chip. Like they're all gonna work together. I'm not even sure that they'll necessarily be all the same memory chips, but they should be, as mixing and matching memory chips can lead to some interesting complications sometimes. Um, yeah, anyway, so that I think covers all of the DDR4 stuff. Let's move on to DDR5, which I am not going to comment on 32 gig DDR5 sticks because I have no experience with them. I have no idea how they behave. Well, actually, I already know which ones are good. Um, but actually, you know what? Let's include them. Let's include. Let's. Well, no. Let's start with. So for DDR5, I would just straight up say, where is it? 2x8. Yeah. So 2x8 DDR5 should just be straight up avoided as far as I'm concerned, because uh, the thing is, 2x8 DDR5 is way more similar to single rank DDR4 than 2x16 DDR5. Like 2x16 DDR5 is a lot more like dual rank DDR4 in terms of how it is logically structured. Whereas 2x8 DDR5 is basically like single rank DDR4 clocked much higher with more smaller memory channels and looser timings. Way looser timings. So I would just not do 2x8 DDR5 at all. Like, there is like DDR5 has a bunch of like upgrades that are just not present in, well, it's not a bunch of upgrades, but DDR5 has like one big improvement over DDR4 um, that 2x8 kits just don't have. Like, it's just not there. You still get the fact that like you get 2 memory channels per memory stick instead of just one, but doesn't make like that doesn't really seem to me make as much of a difference as things like the extra bank groups, especially because it really looks to me like the extra channels on DDR5 are being used to loosen the timings straight to hell. The auto timings on DDR5 are absolutely atrocious. So if you have the same number of bank groups as a DDR4 stick, and you're not really like at DDR5 4800, you aren't really even clocked that much higher. You're clocked just high enough to be in gear 2, basically, on 12th gen Intel CPUs. Um, yeah, so you've got trash auto timings. You don't have the extra bank groups that the 16 gig DIMMs have. You're not really clocked super high. Micron DDR5 generally doesn't clock super high, so I'm sorry, Crucial, but I can't recommend this um, because this is just bad. Like, if it was the same price as cheap DDR4, sure, go for it, knock yourself out. But this is significantly more expensive than cheap DDR4, and it's not significantly better, right? Like, you can get Patriot Viper Steels for this price, or basically this price. Like, this is basically $90. You can get Viper Steels for a little over 90. Viper Steels are going to absolutely wipe the floor with this. So avoid. And this is even more so true for the Kingston kit. Now, Kingston, again, loves to use Hynix memory chips. So you could actually end up with Hynix memory chips in this, and Hynix DDR5 is the best DDR5 right now. But it still has half as many bank groups. It still doesn't fix that issue. You'd have to manually overclock it. And it just, like, no, I would not go for this. Just avoid 2x8 DDR5 kits. Until they get so cheap that, like, until they're at price parity with like low end 2x4, like this is an upgrade. This is a slight upgrade over like low end DDR4, maybe. I'm not entirely certain of that, but it is definitely not comparable to DDR4 that costs as much. Like, DDR4 in this price range is way better than DDR5 in this price range. So I would just avoid this stuff. Anyway, let's go up to 2x16. 2x16 is kind of interesting. So let's go. Yeah, let's start from lowest price. So these four, like for if you're buying anything rated 5200 or lower and you plan to manually overclock, you can just buy a 4800 rated kit and run that, because these crucial 4800 rated kits, they'll all, like, you're basically guaranteed to hit 5400 on them. Um, and yeah, so you get like the performance of a 5200 rated kit, but at the price of a 4800 rated kit, which in this case is like $30 less. Is this better than some $150 DDR4? Not really, because you can get those dual rank Kingston kits at 150-ish. Actually, no, this might have a slight edge, and this doesn't have any of the concerns like, oh, it won't run properly on non-K CPUs, because the VCCSA voltage restrictions only harm DDR4. They really don't affect DDR5 much at all. You can run DDR5 6800 on auto VCCSA on a lot of CPUs. Not that these memory sticks will do DDR5 6800 speeds, but if they could do that, your CPU wouldn't like prevent you from doing that. Um, so yeah, if you're manually overclocking and you're considering like, budget DDR5, then just get the 4800. Otherwise, with DDR5 right now, it's very simple. More speed equals more better if you're not manually overclocking. Because if you're manually overclocking, what speed the memory kit comes at doesn't really matter that much. What matters is what memory chips it comes with, because that's what determines how it's going to overclock. But if you aren't manually overclocking, um, more speed, more better, because the timings don't really matter, right? Like you go from 4800 to 5200, you get more bandwidth, less memory latency, because the memory controller ends up clocked higher. And you also have like a 5238, which actually makes it's the same thing. And actually, PC Part Picker is really nice because they just straight up give us a latency number. But like this 4800 CL38 versus this 5200 CL40, like you can see PC Part Picker just says, yeah, literally this is lower latency. Also, you get the thing is, what a lot of people don't realize is as you clock your memory higher, the memory controller itself gets clocked higher, which means the data, once it arrives from your memory stick at the memory controller, gets through the memory controller faster and gets to the CPU cores faster. So, literally just cranking up the clock speed without changing the actual latency. So if you proportionally increase the timings to match the like memory stick to memory controller latency, your overall memory latency still comes down because your memory controller latency gets lower and lower as your memory controller speed goes up and up. So yeah, so 5200 is just better than 4800 if you're not manually overclocking. It's not a huge difference, but if the well, I mean, in this case I would probably not. Well, it's $20 if your system, like, if you, because here's the thing, it depends what other parts you have in your system. Is like, could you potentially get a GPU upgrade? Well, then upgrade the GPU. Or could you instead get a better CPU? That kind of depends, right? Once you get to like a 12400F, I don't know what's $20 above a 12400F, right? Like that's the question, is like the RAM not is not a priority in terms of the order of things to upgrade. So if you're on like a 12400F, so a 12400F, next step up is, oh, actually, yeah, the next step up sucks. Going from a 12400 to a 12500. Is that a bigger difference than the memory speed? It's probably not, is it? Yeah, no, so that's like a 4% CPU clock increase versus a 8% memory clock increase. Now, most workloads, like you're more likely to run into something that improves with CPU clock than with memory clock in terms of performance. So this, yeah, like I would sooner upgrade from a 12400 to a 12500 than from a 4800 DDR5 kit to a 5200, right? Because like in that price gap, and also that's actually more like $30, not 20. So Yeah, that's kind of the way to look at it. And if you're looking at like a 12600 versus a 12600K, like, those are like $30 apart, and it's just like, so do I buy a better memory kit or do I buy a better CPU? You buy the better CPU. And then you can buy the better, like, it's sort of like if you're building a gaming system, the list of priorities is basically, um, you need enough RAM. So you need at least 16 gigs these days. Um, okay, well, at least. It depends on how low end you're willing to go with your gaming experience. But if you want to play modern games, you'll want at least 16 gigs of RAM, right? Obviously, with DDR5, we're looking at 32 gigs of RAM. Um, but yeah, you'll want 16 gigs of RAM. Then you want as much GPU as possible. And if you're at like a high resolution, then you actually kind of don't care about the CPU. If you're at like 4K, your CPU basically doesn't matter. And so your memory doesn't matter either. Um, Whereas if you're at like 1080p and you're trying to hit high FPS, then your GPU is less important than the CPU, and then you would prioritize like CPU and memory. But even in that scenario, like you would first go for like high-end DDR4 before you hit the like low-end DDR5. And by high-end DDR4, I mean Patriot Viper Steels, right? So yeah, so like low end DDR5 is in a really awkward situation right now where it's like it just doesn't really make a ton of sense. Because the thing is, yeah, non-K CPUs can't clock DDR4 properly, but you can still do like 3466 CL13 with BDI on a non-K CPU. Like that's totally doable. In fact, I have an i3-12100F. I got relatively lucky with my memory controller. It does 3600 CL13, fully stable. Um, yeah. So that's kind of the thing. Is just like low end DDR5 is kind of awkward. It makes, I guess, if you're building a workstation, it might make more sense because you're more likely to run into a lot of workstation workloads favor memory bandwidth. More so than a lot of gaming applications, but yeah, like low end DDR5 is awkward. Now, high end DDR5 has the great advantage of just being better than DDR4 at the cost of being way more expensive. So if you're into the insanely priced Samsung BDI kits, DDR5 is actually kind of neat. And the neat DDR5 starts with, where is it? This. So, like I've mentioned before, Kingston loves to use Hynix memory chips. Um, and consequently, this memory kit right here has a really, really high probability of being SK Hynix. It can also be Samsung. I've heard of people getting these sticks with Samsung memory chips, but the vast majority of these are SK Hynix. And if you get SK Hynix memory chips on these, it is trivial to do like 6200 megabits per second on most DDR5 motherboards. On some motherboards, you'll get stuck at like 6000, but most DDR5 motherboards will do at least 6200. If you have a 1 DIMM per channel board like a Unify X or a Tachyon or a late production Apex, because the early production batch was terrible, or a Z690 Dark, those boards will do 6600 and up with Hynix chips. And it really doesn't matter what memory stick they come on. Like, I know people who run OEM SK Hynix memory sticks at like 6800 CL30. And when I say OEM SK Hynix sticks, I mean green PCB, no heat spreaders, just, like, actually, I think the people were buying like Dell branded memory because for some reason, there was a period of time where all of the Dell DDR5 kits were all Hynix. I guess Dell bought a bunch of Hynix memory chips, or whoever they were using to supply those memory kits just had a bunch of Hynix at the time. So there was a period of time where you could buy a Dell like DDR5 kit and it was always SK Hynix, and a lot of those kits will just do like 6800 CL30, assuming that you have a good enough motherboard. So that's kind of the thing is like, so if you buy a 5600 CL40 kit from Kingston and it ends up having SK Hynix chips, there's a pretty decent chance it'll do 6600 CL30, 6800 CL30. It just comes down to, is your motherboard good enough? Is your CPU good enough? Because yeah, like if you get like SK Hynix DDR5, just doesn't seem to be particularly the clock speed doesn't seem to be a particularly like silicon lottery sensitive part of the equation. Like there are certain memory chips where there's like drastic like clock speed differences and timing differences from chip to chip. But so far, SK Hynix seems to be incredibly consistent in that it all clocks really high. It all does very similar timings, and it's currently just the best DDR5. So you want to get it as cheaply as possible. This is probably the best bet right now because it cannot be Micron. Micron memory chips, like Micron DDR5 currently does not do memory speeds this high at all. So this can't be Micron. It has to be Samsung or Hynix, and Kingston vastly prefers Hynix as a memory supplier compared to Samsung. So if you're buying this, there's a really high probability you're going to get Hynix for $200, which is much cheaper than the like more guaranteed way of getting Hynix, which is well, I've heard that this should be basically guaranteed to be Hynix, but this is technically doable on Samsung memory chips. Like this speed bin is totally doable on Samsung memory chips, and ADATA is not a brand I would consider particularly consistent with their memory chip selection. So yeah, like honestly, I think I would sooner buy a 5600 rated Kingston kit before trying my chances with a 6000 CL40 ADATA. Um, so yeah. Anyway, oh yeah, this is dumb. Please do not buy this. This is very dumb. Um, yeah. What is it? Yeah, 28, 34, 34, 83. Please don't. Um, uh, the main reason why please don't is because the main problem with DDR5 like latency is not the primary timings, it's the sub timings. They really suck. So if you're like get well, I would get this and manually set the timings and, you know, save $40 in the process and end up with better performance because this is clocked higher. So, you know, that helps. Um, and you wouldn't even need to change the cast latency. Like, you could literally beat this memory kit's, yeah, you could beat the memory latency of this memory kit by taking this kit and just tweaking the secondary and tertiary timings and not touching the primaries at all. Though, if you're going as far as tweaking the sub-timings, you may as well tweak your primaries anyway, and in that case, it's going to be very one-sided. Also, I have a sneaking suspicion that Micron chips can actually do CL28 at 5200. I might be wrong about that. Samsung can definitely do this. Samsung can definitely do this. What voltage are they running these at? 1.35. Yeah, that's pretty... For DDR5, that's pretty spicy. So I would not recommend this. This is entirely too much for, yeah, like, I would not go for that. It might be better than the XMP on this. I don't think it would beat the XMP on this, but yeah, it might be. Yeah, it might like, but if you do any amount of tuning, it should be trivial to beat this with this. Even if you get Samsung, you should be able to beat this because yeah, like auto timings on DDR5 are incredibly terrible. So yeah, which means the like performance gains from manual tuning are insane. Anyway, there is also, like, if you want a guaranteed Samsung memory kit, there's this Corsair option. I don't know why you would specifically look for Samsung kits, because they're not as good as SK Hynix kits, but yeah, if for some reason you wanted a Samsung kit, this is one way to get one. But the thing is, this Kingston kit is cheaper and has a chance of being Hynix instead. Though, I guess in some places, actually, the Corsair kit might be cheaper. But, yeah, so between these two, I would go for the Kingston kit. And there is this, like, the thing is, this should probably be SK Hynix because Samsung chips struggle with high clock speeds compared to Samsung, but 6000 isn't that hard for Samsung. So yeah, and CL40 is trivial for Samsung memory chips because the sort of the most reliable bin of Samsung is there's a 6036 G skill bin. That is basically that is all Samsung. And I'm trying to find it. This. Yeah, this right here, this is all Samsung because just 3636 Hynix can Hynix can do TRCD 36, but it needs way more voltage for it than Samsung does at 6000. And so this is guaranteed Samsung. I would not pay extra for a Samsung DDR5 kit because, like I said, SK Hynix DDR5 kits are better if you decide to manually overclock. And yeah, also 36 versus 40 is not that much of a difference, especially on DDR5. It really isn't much of a difference. So yeah. Let's see. Does Corsair... The thing is, this is going to be like 3638, isn't it? No, this is flat 36s, so this has to be Samsung. I don't know why you'd want to get this. What else do we have? Is this a different speed setup? This is 3638. So actually, if Corsair has a 3638 and a 3636, does that mean that one of them is always Samsung and one of them always Hynix? Because it could mean that, but it could also be Corsair just having a bunch of SKUs because... Actually, wait a minute. It could be that. It really could be, because this is like more volts. And this is less volts, lower cast latency. So this might always be Hynix. I don't know that I'd want to... Like, the thing is, Corsair is really, really inconsistent with what memory chips they put into what. No memory... Like, well, other than memory memory vendors that are owned by a chip maker. So, like, Hynix has Clev. Micron has Crucial. Samsung has... I don't know. I don't think Samsung has anyone. Like, yeah, I don't think Samsung has, like, a official... like Samsung memory sticks brand, but like you can get Samsung branded memory sticks, like OEM Samsung memory sticks, but not like they don't have a Crucial or a Clev type company for selling memory sticks. And speaking of Clev, I've not seen any DDR5 from Clev, so I don't know what's up with that. Is Clev even an option? It isn't. Oh, maybe it's just they're not in the U. Oh no, they are an option. Yeah, there's just no Clev DDR5 in the US yet. If there's any in the world, I don't know. But anyway, so this... If you like gambling, I guess it's worth a try. If you want to try a memory loot box, this is it right here. I have a strong suspicion that this is like a Hynix bin. Because it is a lower voltage, the cast latency is reasonably tight. Because like that's the main difference between SK Hynix and Samsung is like you can do really tight cast latency on Hynix sticks. So and you don't need as much voltage to do it. Oops. Yeah, I'm not like... I don't know that I would trust Corsair that much. Like I have a... Yeah, I don't know. Like, unless Corsair themselves come out and say, like, yes, we have these two separate speed bins because one of them is specifically for the Samsung chips and one of them is specifically for the Hynix chips, then I'd be like, yeah, okay, go buy the Hynix bin. But as it is like I'm not 100% certain that Samsung can't do this. And that is not a good thing, right? Like, that is very much not a good thing. Basically, when you're looking for like a reliable speed bin, you want a speed bin where it's like this memory chip cannot do X, and that's how you know you're always going to get what you're looking for. So with like B-die, it's really easy because most DDR4, like for DDR4 Samsung B-die, it's super easy because there's just like you just check the TRCD. It's like, is the TRCD timing any good? If it is, it has to be Samsung B-die because nothing else does TRCD that low. But yeah, for DDR5, it's not that convenient. We don't have like if this was like a CL32, I would be quite confident in that being Hynix. But at 36, it's like, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. It probably is, but I'm not certain. Now, 6236 on the other hand, this I am certain about because so Samsung can hit quite high speeds, but it's way more difficult than it is with Hynix sticks. And so I would be very, very surprised if you got if you got Samsung memory chips on one of these kits. Um, so yeah, if you want like a guaranteed Samsung, guaranteed SK Hynix, this is probably the kit to go for. If you're completely paranoid and want to avoid want to avoid Samsung memory chips like the plague, there is 64. Well, yeah, you have like your 6400 CL32 G Skill kits. You have your 6400. Oh, that's another G Skill. There's a Team Group 6400. Like basically everything rated 6400, regardless of timings, has to be Hynix because the Samsung chips really struggle with high clocks. Like they can do them, but it's way more difficult. So you're not going to have memory vendors like making 6400 XMPs with Samsung memory chips because it's hard. Whereas it's way more convenient to just, take all of your take all your SK Hynix chips, shove them in all the high speed kits, and take all your Samsung chips and put them in everything else. Because, yeah. What other options do we have? That's kind of it, I think. Oh, we have like a 6600 from G-Skill. Now with this, you need to be careful what motherboard you put it in. Oh, Corsair has a 6600. Oh boy. Oh, they have a 6600 CL32. Oh boy. What boards is this QVL'd for? Now this I gotta see. Like what boards? What boards is this supported on? Strix F, Maxima Z690 Hero. That's it. That is very surprising that it's like those two boards specifically. I'm not even certain that this is an 8-layer PCB. That might just be a 6-layer. That is very, very interesting. And I'm surprised that they don't have this QVL'd for like a Unify X. Because on a Unify X, this should be trivial to do. Yeah, on a Unify X, I'd expect this to run just fine. So that is very interesting. Like, they don't even have the formula listed on here. It's literally just two boards. And I'd trust them. Like, I'd trust them quite a lot on that. Actually, let's take a look at one of those Insanity G-Skill kits. How many boards does G-Skill think this will run on? Oh, this doesn't go straight to the G-Skill website. Where's the part number? There's the part number. Oh, we're just going to punch that in Google. And we're going to go to the G-Skill website. I'd love to know what boards this is supposed to work on, because I think it's going to be a very short list. Yup. The classified can run this? Apex? Yeah, my Apex can't. Man, if I could get 6600 to post on my Apex, I would be so happy. Because it doesn't post at all. Like, I have sticks that'll boot 7000 on the Tachyon, and they don't do that on the Apex. I mean, they don't get even close to that on the Apex. My A channel on the Apex tops out at like 6500. Apparently the Extreme and the Extreme Glacial will do it. The Formula will do it. So that is very interesting that like Corsair is over here like, oh yeah, we do the Hero and we do the Strix F. And then G-Skill has like a 6600, which is like some people might be like, oh, but this is CL34 versus 32. That actually, is it even 32? No, it's not. Wait, what? It says 40. Oh, 32, 39. Yeah. Anyway, so that doesn't make much, like timings are relatively free compared to speed. Like speed is really hard on the motherboard, but memory timings are, well, TRCD tends to be really hard on CPU memory controllers for some reason. But the rest of the memory timings are basically like you get them for free. Like very, very rarely do you have timing issues due to your motherboard. Speed issues due to the motherboard, very common. Like that is sort of the biggest difference going from between motherboards is like how high can they clock. What kind of timings they do tends to be basically the same. Like at any given clock speed, you're probably going to see the exact same timings across a variety of boards, but what speed they top out at tends to be all over the place. Um, so I am very surprised that like G.Skill has 6600 validated for like Apex, Extreme, Extreme Glacial, Formula, Hero, and Corsair's like, no, two boards. The Hero, especially because as far as I know, the Hero and the Formula should be the same memory topology, right? Like that's the part I don't get because like I'm looking at this like, well, okay, like I have a Formula, um, and my like, well, based on my experience with my Formula, I wouldn't really expect something like this to work on it. But then you look at the G skill list and it's like, well, the Formula's over. Then again, they also have the Apex on here, and my Apex definitely can't run this. Um, like, absolutely no way in hell is my Apex running this. Oh, actually, that reminds me. I wonder what the 6400 rated kits are QVL'd for. Um, because 6400 tends to be extremely easy to boot on like any motherboard. Like it'll start on basically everything. Well, that's not actually entirely true. There are certain like higher end Z690 boards. So if you have a high end Z690 board, 6400 should be bootable pretty much guaranteed. But stable 6400 is a different matter. So I do wonder what G.Skill. That's not their website. It's like this, right? What G.Skill has that QVL'd for? Oh, they're just not validating Gigabyte at all? I wonder if Corsair then has like a Gigabyte compatible bin. It wouldn't necessarily Intel 600 series. Really? Really? That seems awfully optimistic to me. Because I can think of at least one motherboard where this won't post, or I'd be very surprised if it did post. Um, yeah, no, they're like, they're, okay. That is very interesting. So Corsair's like super conservative on what they expect the 6600 to run on. But then like everything else, like the 6400 is just like, yeah, that'll run on anything, which does not match my experience. Um, Also, this video is way, way longer than it needs to be, but oh well. Low effort videos. You can blame this person for this video turning out the way it did. Um, so now I want to see if like G.Skill has actually validated anything on any Gigabyte boards. Do they just like hate Gigabyte at G.Skill? Because like 6,000 works. Like that is not an issue. Yeah, I don't get it. Cuz like I've not like I like over 6,000 I can kind of understand. But under 6,000, like 6,000 and lower I like well 50, they have 5600 and it's like yeah, well it'll do 5600. I'll just grab all the desktop memory. I wish you could sort by compatibility. Like, hey, I have a gigabyte motherboard. What's the best memory kit that you support for my board? But um, oh boy, this is awful. This is why. This is one thing I like. Memory vendors and their websites are just so bad, like consistently terrible. Um, yeah, like this is the endless scroll. Okay, so we're gonna have some 6000s and some 5600s. Okay, this is a 6000. Oh, well, hopefully that picked up the right link. Yeah, so this is a 6040. This has to be okay. Yeah. Oh, is it a Samsung thing? It might be a Samsung thing. Wait, no, this is a 3040. This is Hynix. This should work. This should totally work. On a gigabyte board. I have no idea why that wouldn't work. Because like that, like I've run settings like that. QVL. This is a 5628. Also, no gigabyte again. That is super weird. Like they're just not QVLing any of the like higher end kits. Which I'm very confused about. Because especially like 5600, this will run on everything in my experience. Like I could do these settings on a freaking, like literally the board. Like I could do these settings on my worst DDR5 motherboard. Easy. Oh wait, this is 2x32. Okay, maybe not. Um, in that case, maybe not. Actually, I'm not sure about that. 2x30. I wish I had some 2x32 DIMMs. And actually, for 2x32, well, no, I don't think I would pay extra for type primaries on 2x32. Because dual rank makes your timings even less relevant. But okay, let's try 2x16s. Because the 2x32, yeah, I could actually see that not working because I don't have one. So there we go. So we've got like a 5630 36, which this I have no idea. Like I have no idea what memory chips this would be. Yeah, so this is QVL for gigabyte just fine. No surprises there. I have a 6030. And I'm assuming this... Oh no, they have gigabyte as well. Wait, was I clicking on a bunch of 32 gig DIMMs then? No, it was 2x16. Okay, well, whatever. Well, that video just totally derailed. Yeah, okay, so maybe it's like really specific to each kit. Because this is, yeah, this has gigabyte listed. I mean, let's check this one. Yeah, okay, this one also. Okay, so I guess it's just the really high-speed stuff where they're like, won't run on gigabyte, which fair enough. Like, yeah, I wouldn't try to daily 6400 on anything but a Tachyon from Gigabyte because the four dimmers, like, they can boot 6400, but it has a tendency to randomly stop being stable. And maybe Gigabyte has fixed that at this point because the BIOS has gotten a lot better recently, but yeah, if they still haven't fixed that, then I can totally see why G.Skill wouldn't have any 6400 kits QVL'd for Gigabyte boards because they wouldn't work very reliably. That 6036 is. Okay. So there's not like a specific thing for Samsung. It's literally just like high-speed gigabyte. Like high-speed kits on Gigabyte boards are a bad idea. And I do agree with G.Skill on that. Anything rated over... Well, 6200 works, but 6400 is like, yeah, no. And G.Skill doesn't have a 6200 bin, so that explains that. Whereas Corsair has a 6200 bin. Though I'm surprised Corsair is like, yeah, 6400 runs on everything. Like, I feel like that's being generous. Then again, this is a... Well, no, because it's retrain instability. It doesn't go away with voltage in my experience. Like, it's just like, at a certain speed, you can't be once you hit a certain memory speed, it's like stability just randomly comes and goes on like boards that have retrain instability issues. And actually, every board will run into that if you just raise the clocks enough. Um, so uh, yeah, so I'm really surprised that Corsair is like, yeah, 6400 will run on everything 600 series, because like I have boards that will straight up not boot 6400. Actually, I have an MSI board that straight up won't boot 6400, right? Or I might be misremembering that. Because I definitely have a Gigabyte board that just stops at 6200. Um, I think I have an MSI board that's basically the same. So this right here is being awfully generous by Corsair. That is, yeah, like I would not say a 6400 is going to run on every Z690 board. Because I can think off the top of my head, or even B6. Actually, Intel 600 series means they're including B660 boards. And this is being extremely generous. There are definitely B660 boards that will not run this kit. It will not be stable. No way. I'm guessing they're just like, well, you're not going to put a $330 kit on a $250 motherboard, but please don't put a $330 kit on a $250 motherboard. But yeah, like I wouldn't say all 600 series. That is being way too optimistic with compatibility in my opinion. But anyway, so DDR5. Yeah, there's DDR5 sticks out there. They're very expensive. Actually, you know what? Let's check out the 2x32 options, because now I'm interested. Also, the video is just completely off track. Who cares? It's a podcast now. It's not, because obviously there's visuals. Anyway, so let's see the cheapest 2x32 kit. Of course, 4800 from Crucial. That's not that bad. Like, that's not that different in price from a 2x16 of Samsung B-Die. Right? Like, if you're buying a high-end 2x16 B-Die kit, that's really not that much cheaper than this. Now, the performance of this is going to actually... it'll probably stop at 5400, so performance is going to be kind of miserable, but it might be better than like dual rank DDR. The thing is, dual rank DDR5, like on DDR4, dual rank is this huge performance boost, whereas on DDR5 it really isn't. So yeah, like there is a performance uplift from going single rank DDR5 to dual rank DDR5, but it's not like it doesn't offset it doesn't offset as much of a speed difference as it did on DDR4. So yeah, this right here is just kind of like, I guess if you're building a DDR5 based workstation. This is laptop RAM, isn't it? I should have checked off 288 pin. Yeah, that was laptop RAM. 5200 at 370. No. Get this instead. Well, I guess if you're really afraid of manually overclocking, and this isn't completely stupid, but like it's so much more expensive, and it's not going to be massively faster. Especially like the one thing that dual rank does really well is because you end up with so many bank groups. The memory controller is able to really interleave the memory accesses just a ridiculous amount. With DDR5 already has a like memory access interleaving advantage over DDR4. So, which is probably one of the big reasons why the primary timings do so little for overall overall performance with DDR5. But then once you hit like dual rank DDR5, I feel like the primary timings may as well not exist at that point. Like the extra speed is nice. The cast latency is just kind of like, well, I guess. You also get slightly better TRCD. But even then, it's just like, it's $100 more. It is not going to be, like, that memory kit is not going to perform 50% better. It's not going to be even close to performing 50% better, but it costs basically 50%. Well, okay, it's not quite 50% more. Let's do the math on this. I like to be way too accurate with statements I make, which is also why I keep putting, like, not literally, well, it's why I like to use the word like, because I like to use the word like kinda, you know? When something is like something, it's kinda something. It's not literally that. It's like that. Anyway, I'm doing the math wrong. Wait, am I doing the math? Yes, I am doing the math wrong. Because it is 369 divided by 279. It is 32% more expensive. I can tell you with absolute certainty it is not 32% faster. I don't even need to run benchmarks to tell you that it's not 32% faster. It might be like 10%, maybe, in like memory limited workloads. There's a 5640 kit from Kingston. This might be a dual rank SK Hynix, in which case this would be really cool. Actually, because well, no, it has to be dual rank. Yeah, so the thing is, Kingston, like, because I just, yeah, no, it's got to be dual rank because it's 32 gig DIMMs. So I wanted to pull up the PDF from Kingston, but that wouldn't tell us anything useful. Like they don't specify what memory chips they use. They just specify how many memory ranks it has. Corsair has a compatibility mode 2x32 kit. So for fun fact, on a lot of motherboards, if you install 4x16 or 4x16 DDR5, a lot of boards will default you to like 4400. Well, actually, Asus boards will drop you down to 4000. Gigabyte boards will drop you to 4533. MSI boards, I am not sure. I think they'll drop you to 4400 or something, or 4533. But yeah, so this is basically compatibility mode for DDR5. It's like, has to work instead of just, because this is not like 4x16 at 4800 is not actually officially supported. It does generally work in my experience, but it's not officially supported. So 4400 for 2x32 is compatibility mode. Like the performance per dollar is terrible. It's guaranteed to work, but at this point you may as well get DDR4 instead. It'll be way cheaper. It'll perform. Actually, DDR4 might outperform. Yeah, actually, it'll be very similar in performance. If you get like a 3600 CL18 2x32 DDR4 kit, the performance is going to be real similar. Because the thing is, this is Gear 2, trash timings, with trash DDR5 subtimings, with like dual rank on DDR5 doesn't really do anything, whereas dual rank on DDR4 helps. So you go, yeah, like I'd rather have dual rank I'd rather have DDR4 2x32 than that. Got the Kingston kit. Nope. Get the Kingston kit instead because it's cheaper. Nope. Man. And then we have like, oh man, those are so damn expensive. That is insane. Fun fact, Asus boards, at least, actually not even the high-end ones, like Asus boards will actually do 6000 on 4x16 with SK Hynix. I don't know if they'll do it with Samsung, but with SK Hynix chips, so what you could do is you could buy, is this the 6200? No, this isn't, I closed the 6200, didn't I? Reopen, close tab. Yeah, I closed, no, this is the 6600. Damn it. Where did the 6200 go? It's DDR4. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So this 6200 kit. So what you could do, and actually I think that works out similarly in price. Yeah, it does. So, well, you'll save a little bit of money, but yeah, you could potentially buy 2 of these, and an Asus like, well, I've done it even on the B660 Strix-F board. So you could buy 2 of these, a 4-DIMM Asus board, and it should do 6000. if you manually tune it. Um, and that should do 6,000. Or you could buy a 6,000 rated G-Skill kit for $660, which is only like $100 more, which really isn't that much more when you're spent like, wait, no, it is 284. No, yeah, I was right. It's like $100 more, ish. Or actually, it's not even 100. Like if you buy it from Corsair, it's like $70 more. So, um, yeah, and this should actually be less, like this should be significantly less difficult to run for the motherboard. And then we have the 5628. I'd love to know what this is. Because if this is Samsung, this is terrible. If it's Hynix, that's really cool. Because it's like a cheaper way to get dual rank Hynix DDR5. But if it's Samsung, then it's like, I mean, well, if it's Samsung, that just sucks because you've just overpaid for like the inferior, like you've paid a lot of money for the inferior DDR5 option in that scenario. Um, yeah, also the XMP on this is even less exciting than it would be if this was a 2x16 kit because again, dual rank makes your timings even less important. Um, but yeah, and then we have a bunch of very expensive and mediocre XMP Corsair kits that like you can't even tell what this is because it's just freaking CL40. So it's like it'll be Samsung, it'll be Hynix, it'll be whatever happens to show up on the factory floor that day. I've got a cheaper option for that. Yeah, so 2x32 DDR5 is kind of like you've got the cheap option and you've got the like high performance option, and then you've got the like, well, you have a cost-effective loot box in the form of this right here, right? Like this isn't complete insane. Well, $400. It's about the same price as buying two of those Kingston Fury kits separately, right? And there's a chance that if you buy two of these, one of them will be Samsung and one of them will be Hynix, and then your life is gonna suck so badly. Whereas if you buy one of these, it's either going to be all Samsung or all Hynix. And at the very least, it'll work, right? Whereas if you get like two of these and one of them is Samsung and one of them is Hynix, you've just screwed yourself. Congratulations. You now have half a working memory kit. Whereas with this'll work. And it's actually a little bit cheaper, isn't it? Because it's 407. Though I guess how is it so cheap on Amazon? Oh, well, it's not cheap in the UK, so that kills my hopes of like that kills my like when I saw this I was like, "Oh, this would be kind of interesting to experiment with," but yeah, I'm not paying that much for a DDR5 kit. Um like it would be interesting to test, but I am not blowing that much money on memory just to test it. So, there we go. That's it. Um I think I've shared all of my thoughts on purchasing DDR4 and DDR5 in current year. For what is it? July 15th, 2022. Yeah. I've just shared all of my thoughts about buying RAM right now. DDR5 is not cost effective, but if you're going for peak performance, it is at this point it is justifiable. I don't think the insanely priced 2x32 kits are particularly justifiable. But there are some like interesting DDR5 options that are under $300 for 2x16, and that's comparable to your 2x16 B-die kits for DDR4. So, yeah, I don't feel like that's completely insane. But if you want peak performance per dollar, 3600 CL18 for DDR4 tends to be sort of like there's 3618 for DDR4 and 3616 for DDR4. Are sort of the cost-effective options. Then there's like the Patriot Viper Steel $100 kits. I mean, I just recorded a video. Just go back through it and like listen to it, I guess, or take notes. Yeah, I should just tell people to take notes while watching my extra long, extra rambly, low effort videos. But anyway, that's it. So thank you for watching. Thank this person for motivating this abomination of a video. Um, and inspiring this abomination of a video. Yes, they inspired it. And if you'd like to support what I do here with actually hardcore overclocking, I have a Patreon. There's a link to that down in the description. I think if you've been on YouTube enough, you should know how that works. There's also the HOC Teespring store where you can pick up shirts and hoodies and posters and usual, YouTuber merch. There's a link to that down in the description below as well. And I also have a Bandcamp if for some reason you hate your ears, because I make like industrial metal inspired noise stuff. So you might want to check that out. There's a link in the description to that as well. Anyway, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.